Welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Ties That Bind. Trent Calloway never considered himself special growing up in Oak Ridge, a blue-collar town where ambition often died in the steel mill shadow. His father worked there for 30 years before lung disease claimed him. Unlike most of his peers, Trent harbored dreams beyond the town's borders. When he met Valencia Reed in junior year of high school, something clicked. Valencia came from the right side of Oak Ridge. Her father, Wade Reed, owned the most successful construction company in the county. Valencia was expected to date boys from families with similar standing, not the son of a steelworker. "You're different," Valencia told him on their third date, as they sat by Willow Creek. "Everyone else here just accepts what they're given. You want more." Their romance flourished despite her parents' initial disapproval. Valencia saw in Trent what others missed: determination wrapped in quiet confidence. When college acceptance letters arrived, Trent received a partial scholarship to state, but not enough to cover expenses. Valencia got into several prestigious universities. "We'll figure it out," she promised. "We'll stay together." Then September 11th happened during their senior year. The world changed, and so did Trent's path. The military offered structure, purpose, and college funding. When he told Valencia about enlisting, her reaction surprised him. "I always knew you'd find your way," she said, eyes bright with a mixture of fear and pride. "Just promise you'll come back to me." Wade Reed finally warmed to Trent when he enlisted. "Shows character," he told his daughter, though his wife Claudia remained skeptical. Valencia's best friend, Nora Wexler, warned her about military relationships. "Long distance never works," Nora cautioned, "especially military marriages. My cousin went through it." Valencia dismissed her concerns. Their love was different. After basic training, Trent proposed during his first leave. They married in a modest ceremony before his first deployment. Valencia in a simple white dress she bought off-rack despite her mother's horror. Trent in his dress uniform. 22 years old and full of promises. The reception wasn't lavish, but it was theirs. Wade made a toast that surprised everyone with its sincerity. "To the man who proved me wrong," he said, raising his glass to Trent. "Take care of my little girl." Trent's childhood friend Dexter Hayes served as best man. Dexter had taken over his father's auto repair shop in Oak Ridge and remained Trent's closest connection to home. "You hit the jackpot, man," Dexter whispered during the reception. "Don't screw it up." What no one at the wedding could see was Wade Reed's construction company was facing financial troubles. The recession had hit hard, but he maintained appearances, telling no one, not even his family, how precarious their situation had become. During his last night before deployment, Trent held Valencia close. "I'll write every day," he promised. "This tour will fly by, and when I come back, we'll start building our future." Valencia smiled, but something flickered behind her eyes. Doubt, fear, or something else entirely that Trent couldn't name. "Just come back safe," she whispered, clutching him tighter. "That's all that matters." Neither realized how their promises would soon be tested in ways they never imagined. Chapter 2. Distant Shores. The heat in Afghanistan hit Trent like a physical blow the moment he stepped off the transport plane. His unit, the 87th Infantry Regiment, was stationed at a forward operating base in Kandahar province. The landscape was alien: dust-covered mountains, sparse vegetation, and a perpetual haze hanging over everything. Staff Sergeant Roscoe Bennett, a hardened veteran on his fourth tour, took Trent under his wing. "First deployment's the hardest," Bennett told him. "Not because of what happens here, but because of what happens back home." At first, Trent didn't understand what Bennett meant. He and Valencia video chatted when possible, exchanged emails daily. She sent care packages with homemade cookies that arrived as crumbs but tasted like home. She seemed supportive, asking questions about his day-to-day life while carefully avoiding mention of the dangers. 3 months in, the frequency of Valencia's messages began to decrease. The video calls grew shorter, often with Valencia claiming fatigue or plans with friends. Trent attributed it to the 13-hour time difference and the natural rhythm of life continuing without him. My wife's started renovating the house, Valencia mentioned during one call, the video quality pixelating her expression. Dad connected us with this amazing contractor, Garrison Pike. You'd like him. He's rebuilding homes for veterans when he's not working on high-end projects. Trent noted how her eyes lit up when she mentioned the contractor. Something cold settled in his stomach, but he pushed it away. That's great, he said. Just don't break the bank. Don't worry about money, Valencia replied quickly. Dad's helping out. You focus on staying safe. What Valencia didn't share was that the help for her father came with strings. Wade Reed had partnered with Garrison Pike on several commercial developments, desperate to save his failing business. Having Pike renovate Valencia's home was part of cementing that relationship, one that was becoming increasingly important to Wade's financial survival. Meanwhile, Trent's unit faced mounting pressure as insurgent activity increased in their region. During a routine patrol, their convoy hit an IED. 2 soldiers died, and Trent sustained minor shrapnel wounds. The incident earned him a Purple Heart, but left invisible scars. After the attack, Trent tried calling Valencia for comfort, but she didn't answer. When she finally responded the next day, her excuse about being at a spa day with Nora rang hollow. Specialist Daniel Russo, who bunked next to Trent, noticed his growing concern. "Everything cool on the home front?" he asked one night. "Yeah, just the usual distance stuff," Trent replied, not wanting to voice his suspicions. Russo hesitated before speaking. "My ex started the same way before I got a Dear John letter my first tour. Just saying, watch for the signs." The signs multiplied. Valencia's social media showed her at restaurants, parties, and events, always smiling, rarely mentioning Trent. In several photos, a tall, well-dressed man appeared in the background. Though never tagged, Trent recognized him from Valencia's home renovation updates, Garrison Pike. "She's just living her life," Trent told himself. "I can't expect her to put everything on hold." Then came the operation in a small village near the Pakistani border. Intelligence suggested a high-value target was hiding there. What they found instead was an ambush that left Trent with a bullet through his shoulder and 3 more dead comrades. During his recovery at the base hospital, Trent received only one brief email from Valencia expressing generic concern. Meanwhile, Dexter sent him a cryptic message. "Call me when you can, brother. It's important." When Trent finally connected with Dexter via video call, his friend's face was grim. "I don't know how to tell you this," Dexter began, "but Valencia's been seen around town with that contractor. They're not being subtle about it. They're working on the house," Trent said defensively. "Of course they're together." Dexter shook his head. "Not just at the house, man. Dinner at Riversong, weekend trips to the lake." Nora tried to warn her about how it looks, but Valencia shut her down. Trent felt his world tilt. Maybe it's business. Her dad's working with this guy. That's part of it, Dexter admitted. Wade's company is in trouble. Word is Pike's investment is keeping it afloat. But this thing with Valencia, it looks personal, Trent. After the call, Trent stared at the ceiling of the medical unit. His shoulder wound, nothing compared to the pain in his chest. That night, he drafted an email to Valencia asking directly about Garrison Pike. He deleted it without sending. Instead, he requested emergency leave, citing family issues. The leave was denied. His unit needed him, especially with their reduced numbers. Trent would have to wait 3 more months before rotation home. 3 months to wonder what awaited him in Oak Ridge. Chapter 3. Shattered Illusions. Trent's unit returned to Fort Drum in New York on a crisp autumn day. After processing through base, soldiers reunited with waiting families. Trent scanned the crowd, spotting families embracing, children running to fathers, wives clutching husbands, but no Valencia. He pulled out his phone, finding a text sent that morning. "Sorry, can't make it to New York. House emergency. See you at home. Love you." Dexter had offered to drive up, but Trent had declined, wanting Valencia to be there instead. Now he regretted that decision as he boarded the shuttle to the airport alone. Upon landing at Oak Ridge Regional Airport, Trent found Dexter waiting. "Thought you might need a ride after all," Dexter said, embracing him. During the drive to Trent's house, the modest three-bedroom he'd purchased with his military signing bonus before deployment. Dexter was uncharacteristically quiet. "Just say whatever you need to say," Trent finally prompted. Dexter gripped the steering wheel tighter. "I'm not sure what's waiting for you at home, but be prepared. Things have changed. With Valencia, with everything. Her dad's business is barely hanging on. Pike's been the white knight, but rumors say the partnership isn't just business." When they turned onto Trent Street, he immediately noticed the changes. The once simple house now featured a new facade, landscaping, and a BMW parked in the driveway beside Valencia's Audi. "Wanted to come in?" Dexter asked as they pulled up. Trent shook his head. "I need to handle this myself." Inside, the house was unrecognizable. Open concept where walls once stood, high-end finishes, designer furniture, a showcase rather than a home. Valencia emerged from the kitchen, looking startled. Her hair was different, her clothes more expensive, but it was the diamond bracelet on her wrist that caught Trent's attention, one he'd never seen before. "Trent, you didn't tell me exactly when you'd be here," she said, moving to embrace him awkwardly. "House emergency?" he asked, stepping back. "Looks like the emergency was making it into a showroom." Valencia flushed. The renovations ran over. Garrison was just fixing. "Garrison," Trent interrupted. "First-name basis with the contractor?" Before Valencia could respond, a tall man with perfectly styled hair and a tailored shirt emerged from the back of the house. "Sorry to interrupt," he said smoothly. "I was just checking the guest bathroom installation." Trent's jaw tightened. "You must be Pike." "Garrison, please," the man said, extending his hand with practiced charm. "Valencia's told me so much about you. Thank you for your service." The rehearsed gratitude felt hollow. Trent ignored the outstretched hand. "What are you doing in my house when I wasn't expected home?" An uncomfortable silence fell before Valencia intervened. "Garrison, maybe you should go. Trent and I need to catch up." After Pike left, Trent confronted Valencia. "What's really going on here? And don't insult me with lies." Valencia's composure cracked. "What do you want me to say? That I've been lonely? That while you've been gone, I've had to remake my life? Dad's business is failing, Mom's drinking again, and I've been here alone trying to hold things together." "And Pike's been helping you hold things together?" Trent asked quietly. "He understands what I'm going through. He's been here, while I've been dodging bullets and watching friends die," Trent finished. "I'm sorry that was inconvenient for you." Valencia's expression hardened. "You chose to leave. You chose the military over college, over me." "I chose to serve my country and build a future for us," Trent countered. "A future?" Valencia laughed bitterly. "Look at Garrison. He built his business from nothing. He employs dozens of people. He's helping save Dad's company. What's your plan? More deployments? More months apart?" The words hung between them like shrapnel. Valencia seemed to realize she'd gone too far, but couldn't take it back. "Is there something going on between you two?" Trent asked directly. Valencia looked away. "I don't know what you want me to say. The truth will be a start." After a painful silence, Valencia met his eyes. "I care about him. It wasn't planned, but while you were gone, I realized I deserve someone who'll be here. Someone successful, with ambition beyond a military career." The admission hit Trent like a physical blow. "Someone successful," he repeated. "Right." That night, Trent slept in the guest room. The next morning, he found an envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside was a letter from Valencia requesting divorce and a check from Wade Reed for $75,000, labeled property settlement. Trent called a lawyer that afternoon. Within a week, he had moved out, renting a small apartment above Dexter's auto shop. The divorce proceedings began quickly, with Valencia eager to finalize things. Through it all, Trent maintained a composed exterior that worried his friends. "You're too calm," Dexter observed one evening. "It's not natural. What good would losing it do?" Trent replied, "She's made her choice." What Trent didn't share was that beneath his calm demeanor, a plan was forming, not just for survival, but for transformation. The military had taught him strategy, patience, and how to identify an enemy's vulnerabilities. Valencia and Garrison had underestimated him, as had Wade Reed with his insulting payoff attempt. They thought Trent Calloway was a stepping stone on their path to success. They would soon discover he was actually a landmine, waiting for the right pressure to detonate. Chapter 4. Foundations of Vengeance. The divorce was finalized in record time, with Valencia eager to move forward with her new life. Trent signed the papers without contesting anything, a decision that puzzled both his lawyer and Dexter. "She's taking you to the cleaners," his attorney, Leona Bradshaw, warned. "We could fight for more." "I don't want anything from her," Trent replied. Clean break. Leona, a sharp-witted divorce attorney who specialized in military cases, studied him with concern. "This isn't like most soldiers I represent. Usually, there's anger, resentment." "Who says I'm not resentful?" Trent asked with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. What no one understood was that Trent's apparent passivity was calculated. While Valencia celebrated her freedom with Garrison Pike at Oak Ridge's upscale venues, Trent was conducting reconnaissance. The military had taught him that information was power, and he gathered intelligence on his targets. Wade Reed's financial troubles were deeper than rumored. Through conversations with construction workers at Dexter's shop, Trent learned that Reed Construction had leveraged everything on a major development project, Westridge Plaza, with Pike as the primary investor and architectural lead. "Old man Reed's betting it all," said Hector Vasquez, a foreman who frequented the auto shop. "If Westridge succeeds, the company's saved. If not, he's finished." Trent also discovered Garrison Pike's reputation wasn't as sterling as his image suggested. Former employees complained about unreceived paychecks and questionable business practices. Pike Designs projected luxury and success, but insiders whispered about corners cut and regulations skirted. Meanwhile, Trent took stock of his own resources. The military had given him discipline, leadership skills, and strategic thinking. His combat experience had taught him to remain calm under pressure and identify weaknesses in any situation. He had his modest savings, the $75,000 settlement he hadn't touched, and his VA benefits. Most importantly, he had time. Valencia and Pike thought he was broken, a jilted husband licking his wounds. Their underestimation was his greatest advantage. 3 months after the divorce, Trent enrolled in business courses at the community college using his GI Bill benefits. His focus, supply chain management and entrepreneurship. His professors noted his intensity and practical approach to every assignment. "You're not like our typical students," observed Professor Dominique Torres after Trent presented a business case study. "You're already thinking 10 steps ahead." While taking classes, Trent maintained his job at Dexter's shop, learning the business side of operations. He saved aggressively, living in the apartment above the garage and spending little on himself. Trent's military connections proved valuable when he reached out to Staff Sergeant Bennett, now stationed at Fort Bragg. "Remember how the guys always complain about our boots?" Trent asked during their call. "How they fell apart in the field." "Standard issue garbage," Bennett confirmed. "Why?" "I'm thinking about solving that problem," Trent replied. "Would you connect me with some of your current unit? I need feedback." Bennett, pleased to hear from his former soldier, readily agreed. Most of these guys would talk for hours about what's wrong with their gear. Through these conversations, Trent identified a clear gap in the market: tactical footwear that actually met the needs of operators in the field. Military contractors supplied subpar products at premium prices, while civilian options weren't designed for combat conditions. 6 months into his planning, Trent took a calculated risk. He approached Leona Bradshaw with a business proposal, legal guidance for a startup in exchange for future equity. "I need someone who understands contracts and isn't afraid of going up against established players," he explained. "Your reputation as a shark in divorce court suggests you're exactly what I need." Leona was intrigued. "What's the business?" "Specialized tactical footwear, initially targeting military and law enforcement," Trent explained, showing her his comprehensive business plan, eventually expanding to civilian outdoor markets. Impressed by his preparation, Leona agreed to represent him. "What are you calling this venture?" Trent smiled. "Callaway Tactical. Simple, direct, honest, everything Pike Designs isn't." While building his business foundation, Trent maintained surveillance on Valencia and Pike. Their relationship had grown increasingly public, with Valencia now working at Pike Designs as a client relations specialist, a position created specifically for her. The Westridge Plaza development had broken ground with significant media coverage, positioned as Oak Ridge's economic revitalization project. What Pike didn't realize was that Trent had been systematically connecting with key players in the construction and development industry, suppliers, contractors, even building inspectors, establishing relationships that would prove valuable. One evening, Dexter confronted Trent as he reviewed material samples in his apartment. "You're planning something, aren't you? This isn't just about moving on." Trent looked up from his work. "What makes you say that?" "You've got that look, same one you had when Billy Thornton bullied us in 10th grade, before you orchestrated his social downfall without ever throwing a punch." Trent chuckled at the memory. Billy deserved what happened. "So do Pike and Valencia," Dexter acknowledged. "Just tell me you won't do anything that'll land you in prison." "I'm not interested in prison visits." "Nothing illegal," Trent promised. "Just appropriate consequences." What Trent didn't share with Dexter was that his plan was already in motion. Earlier that week, he'd met with Colin Maxwell, a building inspector with a reputation for thoroughness, who had been passed over for the Westridge Plaza inspections in favor of a more flexible colleague. "Must be frustrating to see corners cut," Trent had commented during their meeting. Maxwell's expression had darkened. "Pike's got friends in the permit office. But karma comes around eventually." "Maybe karma just needs a little direction," Trent had suggested. As autumn turned to winter, Trent's dual efforts progressed. Callaway Tactical developed prototypes based on feedback from active military personnel, while his network of contacts around the Westridge development expanded. Valencia and Pike remained oblivious, celebrating their successes at charity galas and industry events, their pictures frequently appearing in local media. At one such event, photographed for the Oak Ridge Chronicle Society page, Pike was quoted, "Success isn't about where you start, but where you end up. Some people just don't have what it takes to make it in this business." Trent cut out the quote and pinned it to his wall, a daily reminder of what he was working toward. Not just a business, but vindication. Not just financial success, but justice. As the foundations for both his company and his revenge solidified, Trent received unexpected news. His old unit was being deployed again, and some of his former comrades had requested his newly developed boot prototypes for field testing. "This could fast-track our development," Leona noted when he told her. Trent nodded. "And give us credibility no one can question." The pieces were falling into place. While Valencia and Pike planned their engagement announcement, scheduled to coincide with the Westridge Plaza's Phase 1 completion, Trent prepared for a different kind of unveiling, one that would shake the very foundation of everything they were building. Chapter 5. The Unraveling. The Westridge Plaza development had become Oak Ridge's crown jewel, at least on paper. The first phase was nearing completion, with luxury retail spaces already leased to high-end brands never before seen in the modest town. Local newspapers praised Garrison Pike as a visionary bringing prosperity to Oak Ridge, with Wade Reed riding his coattails back to financial solvency. Valencia had become the project's unofficial spokesperson, her transformation from military wife to sophisticated businesswoman complete in the public eye. Behind the scenes, however, tensions were mounting. Construction delays had pushed the budget beyond initial projections. Pike had pressured contractors to cut corners to maintain the timeline, creating a web of compromises known to few outside the project. What Pike didn't realize was that Trent had positioned himself at the center of an information network. Through Dexter's connections with construction workers, Trent learned about substituted materials and skipped inspections. Through Leona's legal contacts, he discovered the precarious financing arrangements Pike had established, leveraging future phases to fund current construction. "Pike's building a house of cards," Leona observed during one of their strategy sessions for Callaway Tactical. "One strong wind." Trent nodded. "And I'm about to become a hurricane." His opportunity arrived 6 months into the Westridge development when the project's safety officer, Winston Baxter, stopped by Dexter's shop with brake problems. "Stress is killing me," Winston confided while waiting for repairs. "Pike's pushing us to finish the main pavilion for some big announcement event, but there are issues with the structural supports." "Serious issues?" Trent asked casually. "Serious enough that I've documented everything and sent registered letters to cover my ass," Winston replied. I'm not going down when this comes to light. That evening, Trent made 2 calls. The first was to Colin Maxwell, the building inspector who'd been sidelined from the Westridge project. The second was to Simone Torres, an ambitious reporter for the Oak Ridge Chronicle who'd been relegated to human interest stories despite her investigative background. I might have something that would interest you, Trent told Simone. A story about Oak Ridge's biggest development and questions no one's asking. Meanwhile, Callaway Tactical had progressed from prototype to limited production. The boots Trent had sent with his former unit had performed exceptionally in Afghanistan, generating buzz within military circles. Using his settlement money and a small business loan guaranteed by the VA, Trent had secured manufacturing capacity with a factory in Maine that specialized in military-grade footwear. What no one in Oak Ridge knew was that Trent had leveraged his growing industry connections to approach the same high-end outdoor retailers Pike was courting for Westridge Plaza. His pitch: authentic performance footwear designed by veterans, not fashion items masquerading as tactical gear. 2 weeks before the grand Phase 1 opening of Westridge Plaza, Trent's plans converged. The Oak Ridge Chronicle published Simone Torres's explosive investigation. Questions of safety. Westridge development shortcuts exposed. The article detailed substituted materials, skipped inspections, and structural concerns backed by Winston Baxter's documentation and Colin Maxwell's professional assessment. The same day, the Department of Building Safety announced an emergency inspection of all Westridge Plaza structures before any occupancy permits would be issued. Construction halted immediately. Pike was blindsided. At an emergency meeting with Wade, Reed, and other investors, he projected confidence. This is a minor setback. Some disgruntled ex-employee making noise. We'll handle it. Valencia, now sporting an ostentatious engagement ring, publicly defended Pike in a press conference. These allegations are baseless attacks on Oak Ridge's economic future. Garrison Pike's reputation for excellence speaks for itself. What they couldn't know was that Trent had already met with the major retailer signed for Westridge Plaza, presenting evidence of the structural concerns and offering them space in a competing development. One actually built to code in neighboring Clayton County. 3 retailers pulled out of their Westridge contracts within days, citing safety concerns. The project's financing began to wobble as banks questioned the development's viability. Pike scrambled to contain the damage, pushing his political connections to expedite new inspections and offering concessions to keep retailers committed. But the bad news continued when whistleblowers from Pike's previous projects came forward with similar stories of cut corners and safety violations. Valencia found herself in an impossible position. Her father's company was completely leveraged on Westridge's success. Her fiancé was facing mounting allegations. Her carefully constructed new life was showing cracks. Late one night, she appeared at Dexter's shop after hours, finding Trent working on financial projections for Callaway Tactical. "You're behind this, aren't you?" she demanded, eyes red from crying. Trent looked up calmly. "Behind what? Don't play innocent. The inspections, the article, the retailers pulling out, it's all too coordinated." "Sounds like karma to me," Trent replied. "Or maybe just the consequences of cutting corners." Valencia's composure cracked. "You don't understand what you're doing. My father will lose everything. We'll lose everything. Like I lost everything when you decided I wasn't successful enough." Trent countered. "When you threw away our marriage while I was serving overseas. This is your revenge? Destroying a project that would help the whole town." Trent stood, facing her directly. "I didn't substitute inferior materials. I didn't bribe inspectors. I didn't put people's safety at risk for profit. That was your successful fiancé." Valencia faltered. "Garrison says it's standard industry practice. Everyone does it, and that makes it right." Trent shook his head. "The Valencia I married had higher standards." She noticed the Callaway Tactical prototypes and marketing materials on his desk. "What is all this?" "My future," Trent replied simply. "The one you didn't think I was capable of building." Valencia left without another word, but her visit confirmed what Trent suspected. The pressure was working. The facade was cracking. The following week, the situation deteriorated further. Emergency inspections revealed significant structural issues requiring extensive remediation. The project completion date was pushed back indefinitely. Investors began demanding answers and threatening to pull funding. Pike's response was to double down, holding another press conference where he accused competitors and disgruntled elements of orchestrating a smear campaign. Though he didn't name Trent directly, the implication was clear. What Pike couldn't have anticipated was that Trent had obtained copies of the original building plans through his network, showing the approved materials and methods, compared with documentation of what was actually used. This evidence was anonymously delivered to the district attorney's office with a detailed accounting of the potential public safety implications. The DA announced an investigation into possible criminal negligence and fraud related to the Westridge development. Pike's political connections suddenly became liabilities as officials distanced themselves from the controversy. Meanwhile, Valencia discovered financial irregularities in Pike's personal accounts, transfers from business funds to cover mounting personal expenses and lavish purchases. When confronted, Pike's charm vanished. "Mind your own business," he snapped. "I'm trying to save this project and your father's company. Show some gratitude." Their relationship, built on mutual ambition and superficial attraction, began to fray under real pressure. Valencia started to see Pike not as the successful visionary she'd thought, but as someone who took shortcuts and assigned blame rather than accepting responsibility. Everything Trent wasn't. The final blow came when 3 of the major banks financing Westridge Plaza called their loans due to material breach of development agreements. Pike lacked the liquidity to cover the demands, and Wade Reed's company wasn't in position to help. At the height of the crisis, Trent launched Callaway Tactical with a media campaign featuring testimonials from active military personnel. The company's motto, "Built with integrity, tested in combat," was a not-so-subtle contrast to Pike's faltering reputation. Within days of launch, Callaway secured a limited contract with a Special Forces unit, a credential that immediately established the company's legitimacy. Orders began flowing in from military personnel and law enforcement agencies who had heard about the boots through the veteran community. When Pike tried to secure emergency financing to save Westridge Plaza, he discovered that potential investors had already been approached about Callaway Tactical's expansion plans. Several had chosen to back Trent's venture instead, impressed by his approach and the product's authenticity. The unraveling was complete when Wade Reed, facing financial ruin, made a desperate decision. He approached Trent directly, meeting him at the small manufacturing facility Callaway had established on the outskirts of Oak Ridge. "You've won," Wade said, looking older than his years. "Pike's finished. Valencia's devastated. Was that enough revenge for you?" Trent regarded his former father-in-law calmly. "This was never about revenge, Wade. It was about consequences." Pike built his success on shortcuts and lies. That kind of foundation always collapses eventually. "And what about my company? The workers who depend on those jobs?" Trent had anticipated this conversation. "I have a proposal. Reed Construction has a solid reputation outside of the Westridge disaster. Callaway Tactical needs to expand manufacturing. We could form a partnership, your construction experience, my growing brand." Wade was stunned. "Why would you help me after everything?" "Because unlike Pike, I don't destroy things for personal gain," Trent replied. "But my offer comes with conditions. Complete transparency. No shortcuts. And you cut all ties with Pike." Faced with no alternatives, Wade agreed. The partnership would save his company while helping Callaway Tactical expand. The news spread quickly through Oak Ridge. Trent Callaway, the discarded husband, was now the town's unlikely economic savior. For Valencia, the revelations were devastating. Her fiancé was under investigation. Her father had partnered with her ex-husband. Her carefully constructed new life had imploded spectacularly. And through it all, Trent had never once engaged in direct confrontation or questionable tactics. He had simply exposed the truth and offered better alternatives. The revenge she had accused him of was really a mirror, reflecting the consequences of her own choices back at her. Chapter 6: Phoenix Rising. In the aftermath of the Westridge Plaza collapse, Oak Ridge experienced a period of economic uncertainty. The promised revitalization had evaporated, leaving half-finished structures and unemployed construction workers in its wake. Garrison Pike faced multiple investigations, criminal charges for negligence and fraud, civil lawsuit from investors and contractors, and professional censure from architectural associations. His response was characteristic. He fled town overnight, taking what liquid assets remained and leaving Valencia to face the consequences alone. The engagement ring, which Valencia discovered was purchased with company funds, became evidence in the fraud investigation. While Pike avoided immediate consequences through expensive attorneys and jurisdictional complications, his reputation was destroyed. Former business associates distanced themselves, and his previous projects came under scrutiny for similar violations. Valencia, abandoned and humiliated, retreated from public view. Her position at Pike Designs disappeared with the company's bankruptcy. Her social circle, built around her relationship with Pike and their shared success, evaporated when both proved illusory. Contrary to expectations, Trent took no public pleasure in their downfall. When asked about the situation by local media interested in the drama, he offered only a measured response. Business should be built on integrity and actual value, not appearances. Callaway Tactical focuses on creating products that perform when lives depend on them. The partnership between Callaway Tactical and Reed Construction proved surprisingly effective. Wade's experience in development and construction complemented Trent's strategic vision and product knowledge. Together, they converted an abandoned factory on Oak Ridge's north side into Callaway's expanded manufacturing facility, employing many workers left jobless by the Westridge failure. 6 months after the Westridge collapse, Callaway Tactical had grown from a startup to a recognized name in specialized footwear. Their military contracts expanded, and law enforcement agencies across the country began adopting their boots as standard issue. The company's commitment to quality and its foundation in actual field experience resonated with professionals who understood the importance of reliable equipment. Trent's leadership style contrasted sharply with Pike's flashy approach. He maintained a modest office in the factory, regularly walked the production floor, and knew every employee by name. His military background informed his management philosophy: clear objectives, defined responsibilities, and genuine concern for his team. The success brought unexpected attention. Industry publications featured Callaway Tactical as an emerging player disrupting established manufacturers. Veteran organizations praised the company's hiring practices, which prioritized former military personnel. Investment offers arrived regularly, though Trent remained selective about external funding. One evening, as Trent reviewed expansion plans in his office, Dexter arrived with surprising news. "Valencia's back working at the diner," he said, referring to the local restaurant where she had waitressed during college. "Nora says she had no choice. Her parents are selling their house to pay legal fees, and she's got nowhere else to go." Trent absorbed this information without visible reaction. "That's unfortunate." "That's it. Unfortunate?" Dexter pressed. "The woman who dumped you for a more successful man is now serving pancakes while you're running a $1 million company. There's poetic justice, and then there's this." "What do you want me to say, Dexter? That I'm celebrating her downfall? I'm not Pike. I don't build myself up by standing on others. So you feel nothing seeing her brought so low?" Trent considered the question seriously. "I feel that everyone's choices lead somewhere. She chose Pike because he appeared successful and present. I was neither at the time. Her mistake wasn't choosing him over me. It was valuing appearance over substance." Dexter shook his head. "You're a better man than most." What Trent didn't share was the complexity of his feelings. Vindication, certainly, but not the satisfaction he had expected. The revenge that had driven him for months felt hollow now that it was complete. Valencia's suffering didn't heal his wounds. Only his own success and forward momentum did that. The following week, Callaway Tactical received an unexpected visitor. Valencia arrived at the factory reception area, clearly uncomfortable but determined. "I need to speak with Trent," she told the receptionist. "It's personal." When Trent emerged from his office, Valencia barely recognized him. Gone was the military crew cut, replaced by a more relaxed style. His posture remained disciplined, but he carried himself with the confidence of someone who knew exactly who he was and where he was going. "Valencia," he acknowledged. "Let's talk in my office." Once the door closed, Valencia spoke rapidly. "I know you orchestrated everything. The inspections, the article the investors pulling out. You systematically destroyed Garrison and took my father's company in the process." Trent leaned against his desk. "Is that what you came to say?" "I came to ask why," she replied, voice breaking. "Was humiliating me so completely necessary? Was ruining my life worth it? I exposed Pike's fraudulent practices and offered better alternatives to investors and retailers," Trent corrected calmly. "Everything that happened stemmed from his actions and choices, and yours." "My choices? I made one mistake." "You chose a man who built his success on lies and shortcuts," Trent interrupted. "You chose appearance over substance, Valencia. That wasn't a mistake. It was a revelation of character." The words landed like physical blows. Valencia's carefully constructed indignation crumbled. "So this was your revenge? Showing me how wrong I was?" "This wasn't about revenge," Trent replied. "It was about building something real while Pike built illusions. The fact that his illusions couldn't withstand scrutiny isn't my fault." "And what about us? Did what we had mean anything to you?" Trent's expression softened slightly. "It meant everything to me. That's why your letter hurt so deeply. I deserve someone successful." Those words stayed with me through every day of building this company. Valencia flinched at hearing her own words quoted back. "I was wrong," she admitted quietly. "About so many things." "Yes, you were," Trent agreed without malice. "But your mistake wasn't leaving me. It was measuring success by the wrong metrics." After a pause, Valencia asked, "What happens now? With us?" "Nothing. That chapter is closed," Trent replied. "But if you're asking about your future, that's entirely up to you." "Easy for you to say from your position," she said bitterly. "I've lost everything." "No, you've lost the illusion of everything," Trent corrected. "Just like I did when I came home to find you with Pike. The difference is what we built afterward." Their conversation was interrupted by Leona Bradshaw arriving for a scheduled meeting. Seeing Valencia, she raised an eyebrow, but remained professional. "Should I come back later?" she asked Trent. "No, we're finished," he replied, turning to Valencia. "Good luck, Valencia. I mean that sincerely." As Valencia left, she passed the wall of Callaway Tactical's core values, prominently displayed in the reception area: integrity, resilience, innovation, purpose. Words that once would have seemed quaint to her now felt like an indictment of all she had valued and lost. That evening, Trent met with Wade Reed at the factory to discuss expansion plans. Despite their complicated history, they had developed a functional professional relationship. "Valencia came to see you today," Wade noted. "It wasn't a question." "She did," Trent confirmed. "She's struggling," Wade said, the concern of a father evident in his voice. "Claudia and I are doing what we can, but the legal bills—" Trent nodded. "I heard you're selling the house." "No choice. Pike left us holding most of the bag," Wade admitted. "The partnership with you saved the business, but our personal finances are another matter." After their meeting concluded, Trent made a decision that surprised even himself. Through an anonymous arrangement facilitated by Leona, he purchased the Reed family home at its full market value, allowing the bank to place it in a rental program that permitted the Reeds to remain as tenants at a reduced rate. When Dexter discovered this arrangement, he was baffled. After everything they put you through, why help them? Trent struggled to articulate his reasoning. Because revenge wasn't the point. Building something better was. And because carrying hate is heavier than carrying compassion. As Callaway Tactical continued its ascent, Trent maintained his focus on expansion and innovation. The company opened a research facility dedicated to developing new materials and designs. They launched a civilian line that quickly gained traction in outdoor and workwear markets. National retailers began carrying their products, and international distribution deals were in negotiation. Meanwhile, Garrison Pike's legal troubles mounted. Unable to secure high-profile contracts after his reputation collapsed, he attempted to launch a new venture in Florida under a different company name. The scheme unraveled when previous clients recognized him and alerted authorities to his presence. Valencia, gradually rebuilding her life, enrolled in community college courses while continuing to work at the diner. The experience of serving others rather than being served proved transformative. The humility forced upon her created space for genuine self-reflection. 1 year after the Westridge Plaza collapse, Oak Ridge had recovered. Callaway Tactical's success generated ancillary businesses and opportunities. The abandoned Westridge site was eventually purchased by a regional developer who, working with Reed Construction, converted it into a mixed-use development with more modest but sustainable goals. Trent, now 31, had achieved success beyond what either he or Valencia had imagined possible during their marriage. Yet material success wasn't what drove him forward. It was the knowledge that he had built something authentic, a company that reflected his values and created genuine value for others. His revenge, if it could be called that, wasn't in Valencia and Pike's downfall. It was in proving that integrity and perseverance could achieve what shortcuts and appearances couldn't. Lasting success built on solid foundations. Chapter 7. Empire Building. 5 years after the Westridge Plaza debacle, Callaway Tactical had evolved from a specialized footwear company into Callaway Performance Systems, a comprehensive provider of tactical gear, training, and consulting services with operations across the United States and contracts in 12 countries. The company's headquarters remained in Oak Ridge, though the original factory had expanded multiple times to accommodate growing production demands. The abandoned industrial zone surrounding the facility had transformed into a vibrant business park housing suppliers, technology partners, and support services, all part of the Callaway ecosystem. Trent's leadership approach had become legendary within the industry. His military background informed his management philosophy: clear objectives, defined responsibilities, and genuine concern for his team. But it was his strategic vision that truly distinguished the company. While competitors chased trends, Callaway identified and solved fundamental problems for operators in the field. The difference between us and everyone else, Trent explained to new employees, is that we never forget who we serve and what's at stake when our products are deployed. This unwavering focus on end-user needs earned Callaway contracts with elite military units, federal law enforcement agencies, and international security organizations. Their testing protocols, which subjected every product to real-world conditions before approval, became industry standards. The company's expansion into training and consulting happened organically when clients began requesting guidance on equipment implementation and operational procedures. Trent built this division by recruiting veterans with specialized expertise, creating a second career path for former operators while enriching Callaway's knowledge base. By any measure, Trent Callaway had become the embodiment of success. The company employed over 500 people, annual revenues exceeded $100 million, and industry publications regularly featured him as a visionary leader who had disrupted established markets through innovation and authenticity. Despite his professional accomplishments, Trent maintained a relatively private personal life. He had purchased a modernized farmhouse on 30 acres outside Oak Ridge, where he could find solitude after demanding days. His closest relationships remained with Dexter and a small circle of military friends, though his position necessitated a broader social network. Leona Bradshaw, whose early legal support had been crucial to Callaway's formation, now served as chief legal officer and one of Trent's most trusted advisors. Their professional relationship had deepened into genuine friendship based on mutual respect and shared values. "You never actually talk about it," Leona remarked during a rare social dinner at Trent's home. The transformation from jilted husband to industry leader. "It's quite the story." Trent smiled, because it's not the story most people think it is. "Oh, what's the real story then?" "It's not about revenge or proving Valencia wrong," Trent replied, choosing his words carefully. "It's about finding purpose. The military gave me that once. When I lost it, and her, I had to find something new to drive me forward. And building an empire was it." Leona pressed. "Building something meaningful," Trent corrected. "Something that matters to people who put their lives on the line. The size was never the point." What Trent didn't articulate was how completely his identity had evolved beyond his past. The pain of Valencia's betrayal had faded, replaced by appreciation for the catalyst it had provided. Without that breaking point, he might never have discovered his true capabilities or purpose. Meanwhile, Oak Ridge had been transformed by Callaway's success. The once struggling town now attracted young professionals and businesses seeking proximity to the company's operations. Property values had increased, the downtown area had been revitalized, and educational opportunities had expanded with Callaway's support for technical training programs at the community college. Wade Reed had retired from active management at Reed Construction, though the company remained a key partner in Callaway's infrastructure projects. The partnership had restored the Reed family's financial stability, albeit not to their previous level of affluence. Valencia's journey had taken unexpected turns. After completing an associate's degree in business administration, she had secured an entry-level position at a regional marketing firm. Her experience, both the rise with Pike and the subsequent fall, had given her insights into authentic value versus superficial success. She advanced steadily through determination and genuine skill rather than connections or appearances. Occasionally, Trent and Valencia crossed paths at business functions or community events. Their interactions remained cordial but distant, a mutual acknowledgement of their shared history without any attempt to revisit it. What neither knew was that their paths would soon converge again under circumstances neither could anticipate. The catalyst was a routine business decision. Callaway Performance Systems needed expanded public relations capabilities to support international growth. After reviewing proposals from several firms, Trent's team selected Meridian Marketing, Valencia's employer, based on their regional expertise and competitive pricing. When the contract was finalized, Valencia was assigned as the account manager due to her familiarity with Oak Ridge's business landscape. Her first meeting at Callaway headquarters would be her first direct professional interaction with Trent in years. The night before the meeting, Valencia sat in her modest apartment reviewing Callaway's materials. The company's evolution amazed her, from a focused tactical footwear startup to a comprehensive systems provider employing hundreds, all built by the man she had once dismissed as lacking ambition. At their scheduled meeting, Valencia arrived at Callaway headquarters 15 minutes early, taking in the impressive facility. The reception area displayed the company's products, awards, and core values. Still the same four words Trent had established at the beginning: integrity, resilience, innovation, purpose. When Trent entered the conference room, accompanied by his marketing director, Valencia was struck by the man he had become. Now 36, he carried himself with quiet confidence that required no external validation. Success had not made him flashy or arrogant, qualities she had once mistakenly associated with achievement. Valencia, he acknowledged with a professional nod. Good to see Meridian sent their best. The meeting proceeded with focused efficiency. Trent outlined Callaway's objectives for the campaign, emphasizing authenticity in all messaging. We don't sell gear, he explained. We provide solutions that can mean the difference between mission success and failure, sometimes between life and death. Our communication needs to reflect that responsibility. Valencia found herself impressed by the clarity of his vision and the loyalty he inspired in his team. This was leadership based on substance rather than style, everything Garrison Pike had imitated but never truly possessed. After the meeting concluded, Trent asked Valencia to stay behind. When they were alone, an awkward silence fell between them, the weight of their history momentarily displacing their professional personas. I didn't realize you were at Meridian, Trent finally said. For years now, Valencia replied. I'm surprised your team didn't mention it before approving the contract. They might have. I don't micromanage their decisions. After a pause, he added, will this arrangement be a problem for you? Valencia met his gaze directly. No, it's business. I'm good at what I do now. Actually good, not just connected or well-positioned. Trent nodded. I've heard positive things about your work. Meridian was selected on merit. Thank you, she replied, genuinely appreciative of the acknowledgement. What about for you? Will working with me be uncomfortable? The past is the past, Trent said simply. We've both moved forward. As Valencia gathered her materials to leave, curiosity overcame her professional restraint. Can I ask you something? All of this, she gestured to encompass the headquarters building. Would it have happened if we had stayed together? If I hadn't left me for Pike? Trent finished when she hesitated. He considered the question seriously. I don't know. Maybe eventually, but probably not with the same drive or timeline. Sometimes our worst moments lead to our best outcomes. The philosophical response surprised her. The wounded soldier she had abandoned would have answered differently. This man had transcended the pain she had caused and found wisdom in it, another measure of how far he had come. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I've spent years regretting how I handled things. Not just leaving, but how I did it. What I wrote to you. Trent's expression remained unreadable. We all have regrets, Valencia. The question is what we build from them. After she left, Trent stood at his office window overlooking the Callaway campus. Their interaction had stirred memories he typically kept buried beneath daily operations and strategic planning. Not just of Valencia's betrayal, but of the man he had been before, defined by external expectations rather than internal purpose. That evening, he called Dexter, who had expanded his auto repair business into a regional chain with Trent's early investment. Valencia's firm is handling our international PR, Trent explained after exchanging greetings. She'll be working directly with our team. Dexter whistled. That's quite the full circle. How'd it feel seeing her in a professional context? Strange, Trent admitted, but not in the way I expected. It was like meeting someone from a different lifetime. She's single again, Dexter mentioned casually. Has been for a couple years now. That's not relevant, Trent replied firmly. We have a professional relationship now. Nothing more. What Trent didn't share was how the encounter had reminded him of something missing in his life. His company had become his primary focus, almost his entire identity. While professionally fulfilling, it left little room for personal connections beyond his established friendships. The following weeks brought regular interactions with Valencia as the marketing campaign developed. Their professional relationship remained strictly bounded, though they gradually settled into a rhythm that acknowledged their history without being defined by it. During this period, Callaway received significant news. The company had been selected as a finalist for a major defense contract that would expand their international presence substantially. The competition included established industry giants with decades of government relationships. This is the opportunity we've been building toward, Trent told his executive team. Not just for the contract itself, but for what it represents, recognition that our approach has fundamentally changed the industry standard. The final presentation would take place in Washington, D.C., requiring coordination between technical, operational, and marketing teams. Valencia's role expanded to help craft the public-facing elements of the proposal, giving her deeper insight into Callaway's operations and Trent's leadership approach. As they worked together on the presentation, Valencia observed how thoroughly Trent had integrated his military experience into his business methodology, emphasizing reliable performance under pressure, clear communication, and unwavering support for those on the front lines. You've created something remarkable, she told him after a particularly intensive strategy session. Not just successful, but meaningful. Trent studied her for a moment before responding. That was always the difference between Pike and me. He wanted success for its own sake, the appearance, the status. I wanted to solve real problems for people whose lives depend on having the right equipment. The comment hung between them, an implicit reference to her past choice and its consequences. Rather than becoming defensive, Valencia nodded. I understand that now. I didn't then. Their conversation was interrupted by news that would accelerate their collision course with the past. Garrison Pike had been released from prison after serving 3 years for fraud and financial crimes. Local media reported he had returned to Oak Ridge, claiming rehabilitation and a desire to make amends. Chapter 8. Ghosts of the Past. Garrison Pike's return to Oak Ridge created ripples throughout the community. Local media covered his release with skepticism, recalling the economic damage his fraudulent practices had caused. Former associates distanced themselves, unwilling to risk their reputations through renewed connection. Pike's public statements projected humility and redemption. "I've paid for my mistakes," he told the Oak Ridge Chronicle. "Now I want to give back to the community I harmed through legitimate business ventures." Few believe his transformation was genuine, but Pike persisted in attempting to rebuild his presence in Oak Ridge. He rented a modest office downtown, far from his previous luxurious headquarters, and established Pike Consulting, positioning himself as an advisor to small businesses and entrepreneurs. When Trent learned of Pike's return, his response was measured. "As long as he operates legally and stays away from my company, his presence doesn't concern me," he told his executive team, who worried about potential disruption. Valencia's reaction was more complicated. Pike had contacted her immediately upon his return, requesting a meeting to clear the air and make amends for past wrongs. She had declined firmly, but his persistence troubled her. "He keeps calling," she confided in Nora during lunch. "Says he's changed and wants to apologize properly." Nora, who had remained Valencia's friend through her downfall and rebuilding, was skeptical. "Garrison doesn't apologize. He manipulates. Whatever he wants, it's not closure." Valencia agreed intellectually, but admitted the situation was stirring up unresolved feelings. "Working with Trent's company while Garrison tries to reconnect. It's like my past and present are colliding." The collision intensified when Pike began publicly praising Callaway Performance Systems as an example of the innovation Oak Ridge needs and expressing interest in potential collaborative opportunities. His transparent attempt to associate himself with Callaway's success caught media attention, forcing Trent to respond. Through an official statement, Callaway Performance Systems made its position clear. "We have no relationship with Mr. Pike and no interest in establishing one. Our standards for business partners include a demonstrated history of integrity and transparent practices." The public rejection angered Pike, whose rehabilitation narrative required acceptance from successful local businesses. His focus shifted to Valencia, intensifying his efforts to reconnect with her as both a personal validation and a potential inroad to Trent's world. "He's becoming more aggressive," Valencia told Trent after a project meeting. "Showing up at my office, sending elaborate gifts. It's affecting my work." Trent frowned. "Have you considered a restraining order?" "That feels extreme, but his behavior is increasingly erratic," Valencia admitted. "Yesterday, he mentioned knowing about my work with Callaway. He seemed fixated on it." "That's concerning," Trent acknowledged. "Pike has always been driven by appearances and connections. Seeing you working with me after everything must be triggering his worst insecurities." What neither anticipated was how quickly Pike would escalate from annoyance to active threat. The following week, industry blogs published insider stories questioning Callaway's manufacturing standards and suggesting the company's meteoric rise involved shortcuts similar to Pike's past practices. Though the allegations were vague and unsubstantiated, they created uncertainty just as Callaway prepared for the critical defense contract presentation. Suppliers and partners requested reassurance. Competitors amplified the rumors. Leona's investigation quickly traced the stories to sources connected to Pike, though his involvement was carefully concealed. "Classic Pike. He's trying to create doubt through innuendo," she reported to Trent. "Nothing actionable yet, but the timing is obviously intended to disrupt the contract bid." Valencia was horrified when she discovered Pike's campaign. "He's using the same tactics you exposed years ago. Now against you," she told Trent. "I feel responsible since my connection to both of you gave him the opening." "You're not responsible for his actions," Trent replied firmly. "But your insight into his methods could be valuable in countering them." As the defense contract presentation approached, Pike's attacks grew more sophisticated. Financial analysts received anonymous tips suggesting Callaway's growth was unsustainable. Manufacturing employees were approached about potential safety concerns that could be shared with regulatory agencies. Pike was leveraging every contact and tactic to undermine the company Trent had built. The situation reached critical mass when Pike managed to access preliminary marketing materials for the defense contract through a junior employee at Meridian who had previously worked for him. The breach compromised sensitive elements of Callaway's proposal strategy. Valencia discovered the leak and immediately reported it to both her superiors at Meridian and to Trent. Pike manipulated my colleague using their past relationship, she explained. He's been planning this for weeks. The crisis required immediate response. Trent convened an emergency meeting with his executive team and legal counsel. We have two challenges, he outlined. First, securing our proposal and adapting to the breach. Second, neutralizing Pike's ongoing campaign without being distracted from our objectives. While Callaway's technical team worked to revise their presentation strategy, Leona developed the counteroffensive against Pike. We need to expose his methods without engaging in the same tactics, she emphasized. Maintaining our integrity is non-negotiable. Valencia, though not part of Callaway's team, offered crucial assistance. I know how Pike operates, his contacts, his pressure points, his methods. Let me help. Her involvement created a strange alliance between former spouses now united against a common adversary. Working closely together revealed to Valencia how thoroughly Trent had transformed from the soldier she had married into the leader before her, strategic, composed under pressure, and unwavering in his principles. For Trent, Valencia's assistance provided unexpected clarity about his own journey. Her insights into Pike's psychology helped anticipate and counter his moves, but more importantly, her presence forced Trent to finally confront and release lingering resentments he hadn't fully acknowledged. Their strategy against Pike developed along two paths. Officially, Callaway Performance Systems issued a comprehensive response to the rumors, inviting industry analysts and journalists to tour their facilities and review their quality control processes. The transparency neutralized much of Pike's innuendo campaign. Unofficially, Valencia leveraged her knowledge of Pike's past to identify his current vulnerabilities. His rehabilitation narrative depended on maintaining the appearance of legitimate business practices. Any suggestion that he was reverting to previous patterns would undermine his carefully constructed comeback. Through Leona, they discovered Pike had approached several of Callaway's competitors with promises of insider information, technically a violation of his parole conditions regarding corporate espionage. Rather than having him arrested immediately, they documented his activities meticulously, building a comprehensive case. We're not just defending against his current attacks, Trent explained to his team. We're ensuring he can't repeat them. As the defense contract presentation date approached, Pike grew increasingly desperate. His campaign against Callaway wasn't achieving the desired impact, and his attempts to re-establish himself in Oak Ridge's business community were faltering as his true intentions became apparent. In a final reckless move, Pike attempted to approach members of the Defense Contract Selection Committee directly, offering concerning information about Callaway's practices that they should consider before making their decision. This overreach provided exactly the opening Trent and Valencia had anticipated. The committee members reported Pike's contact attempts, triggering an official investigation into potential interference with government procurement processes, a serious federal offense. When Pike realized the trap he had walked into, he made one last desperate attempt to salvage his position. He contacted Valencia, demanding she meet him or he would release information about her that would end her career and relationship with Callaway. Valencia immediately informed Trent and Leona about the threat. Together, they arranged for Valencia to meet Pike at a public restaurant, with hidden recording devices and Leona's legal team watching from nearby tables. At the meeting, Pike's facade of rehabilitation completely collapsed. He alternated between threatening Valencia and attempting to charm her with memories of their past relationship. When neither approach worked, he revealed his true motivation. This was never just about business, he admitted bitterly. It's about Callaway. The man was nothing when you left him for me. Nothing. Now he's running the company I should have built, living the life that should have been mine. The difference is that Trent built his success on solving real problems with real solutions, Valencia replied calmly, while you built yours on appearances and shortcuts. Pike's expression darkened. You think you understand him? The man orchestrated my downfall and took everything from me. His precious integrity is a front. He's more calculating and ruthless than I ever was. No, Garrison, Trent simply exposed the truth about your methods. The consequences were of your own making. As Pike became more agitated, he inadvertently confessed to his recent campaign against Calloway, including details of how he had manipulated people and planted false information, all captured on the hidden recording devices. The following day, Pike was arrested for parole violations and new charges related to corporate espionage and attempted interference with government contracting. The evidence Valencia had obtained ensured he would face significant additional prison time and permanent restrictions on his business activities. With Pike neutralized, Calloway's team refocused entirely on the defense contract presentation. The crisis had actually strengthened their position by demonstrating the company's resilience and integrity under pressure, qualities particularly valued by defense procurement officers. The night before departing for Washington, Trent invited Valencia to dinner at his home, a gesture of appreciation for her role in resolving the Pike situation. The farmhouse's simple elegance reflected its owner's values: quality without ostentation, functionality with purpose. "I never properly thank you," Trent said as they sat on his porch, overlooking the property. "Your insights into Pike were crucial." "It felt like closing a chapter that needed ending," Valencia replied. "For both of us." The conversation gradually shifted from Pike to their own history. For the first time in years, they spoke openly about their marriage, its dissolution, and the divergent paths they had taken afterward. "I've wondered sometimes," Valencia admitted, "what would have happened if I'd had the maturity then to see what I see now. Which is, that success isn't what I thought it was." Pike seemed successful because he projected the image of it, the clothes, the cars, the connections. But it was hollow. What you've built has substance and purpose. Trent considered her words. "We were young. I was away. You were surrounded by people defining success in superficial terms. We both had growing to do." Their conversation continued late into the evening, not rekindling romantic feelings, but achieving something perhaps more valuable: mutual understanding and genuine closure. As Valencia prepared to leave, she asked the question that had lingered unspoken throughout their renewed connection. "The high school reunion is next month. Will you be attending?" Trent hadn't considered it. His focus had been entirely on the defense contract and countering Pike's threats. "I hadn't planned on it. Those events always feel like exercises in comparison and nostalgia." "You'd certainly win any comparison," Valencia noted with a small smile. "The most successful graduate in our class, by any measure." "That was never the point," Trent replied. "I know. That's why you deserve the recognition," Valencia said. "Think about it. It might be a fitting conclusion to this chapter for both of us." As she drove away, Trent considered the invitation and what it represented. Perhaps it was time to come full circle, to return to where their story began, not for validation or vindication, but as acknowledgement of the journey completed. The following morning, Trent and his team departed for Washington, focused entirely on the presentation that could expand Calloway's impact globally. The past, for the moment, was placed firmly behind them. Chapter 9. Full Circle. The Oak Ridge High School 20th reunion was held at the Grand Meridian Hotel, the most upscale venue in the now prospering town. The transformation of Oak Ridge over 2 decades mirrored the divergent journeys of its graduates. Some had flourished beyond expectations, others had struggled against unforeseen challenges, and many had settled into lives different from their youthful ambitions. The reunion committee, chaired by Nora Wexler, had spent months planning the event. The guest list revealed the scattered paths of the class of 2005: doctors, teachers, entrepreneurs, parents, and everything in between. But one name generated particular anticipation: Trent Calloway, whose success had put Oak Ridge on the map and whose personal story had become local legend. "Is he actually coming?" committee members asked repeatedly. "Has he confirmed?" Trent had neither confirmed nor declined. The defense contract presentation in Washington had been successful, with the final decision expected within weeks. Upon returning to Oak Ridge, he had immersed himself in operational matters, the reunion invitation set aside amid more pressing concerns. 3 days before the event, Dexter raised the subject during their monthly dinner. "So, are you going to show these people who you've become, or what?" Trent shrugged. What would be the point? The people who matter to me already know who I am. Maybe it's not about proving anything, Dexter suggested. Maybe it's about closing a circle. The phrase echoed Valencia's words from weeks earlier. Trent considered how much had changed since their high school days, since his return from deployment to find his marriage shattered, since the painful rebuilding that followed, since the recent confrontation with Pike that had finally exorcised old ghosts. "I'll think about it," he told Dexter, though he remained uncertain. The morning of the reunion, Trent received the news he had been waiting for. Callaway Performance Systems had won the defense contract, securing the company's international expansion and validating its approach against entrenched competitors. The team celebrated the achievement, though Trent remained characteristically focused on implementation rather than accolades. That evening, as the reunion began at the Grand Meridian, speculation about Trent's attendance grew among former classmates. His absence would be conspicuous, his presence momentous. Valencia arrived early to help Nora with final arrangements. She had debated attending, knowing her history with Trent and Pike would be a subject of inevitable gossip. But she had earned her place in Oak Ridge through years of rebuilding her life and reputation. She belonged at the reunion as much as anyone. "Have you heard if Trent is coming?" Nora asked as they arranged name tags. "I suggested he should, but he seemed reluctant," Valencia replied. "It might be for the best. Our history would overshadow everything else." The ballroom gradually filled with former classmates reconnecting, comparing life paths, and revisiting shared memories. Many had followed Trent's success from afar, reading about Callaway Performance Systems in business publications or seeing the company's products used by law enforcement and military personnel. As the evening progressed, Valencia found herself engaged in conversations about her marketing career, carefully navigating questions about her past relationships. She had built a respectable professional identity separate from both her failed marriage and her disastrous relationship with Pike. The woman who had once valued status above substance had evolved into someone who understood the difference between them. Shortly after the formal dinner began, a stir swept through the ballroom. Heads turned toward the entrance where Trent Callaway stood, dressed not in flashy attire, but in a well-tailored suit that projected quiet confidence. He had come alone, without entourage or fanfare. The room fell momentarily silent as former classmates processed his presence. This was the local success story in the flesh, the jilted husband who had transformed rejection into empire. Valencia felt her heart beat faster as conversations resumed with increased energy. Trent moved through the room with natural ease, greeting former classmates without pretension. His manner was engaged but reserved, exactly as Valencia would have expected from the man she now knew him to be. When he approached her table, the surrounding conversations hushed slightly, attendees not even attempting to disguise their interest in this interaction. "Valencia," he greeted her with a genuine smile. "You and Nora did an excellent job with the arrangements." "I'm surprised you came," she replied honestly. "Dexter and you both made the same point about closing circles," Trent said. It seemed like the right time. Their exchange was observed with fascination by those nearby, many of whom had followed the dramatic arc of their relationship through local gossip over the years. What they witnessed was neither awkward tension nor romantic reconciliation, but something more nuanced, mutual respect between two people who had traveled difficult roads to become their authentic selves. As the reunion continued, Trent was approached by former teachers, classmates, and even Valencia's parents, who attended as chaperones. Wade Reed's interaction with his former son-in-law was particularly noted, cordial and respectful, reflective of their current business relationship rather than their complicated past. The reunion committee had planned a series of light-hearted awards for attendees. Most children traveled farthest, most career changes. When they announced most successful, the room erupted in applause before Trent's name was even called. He accepted the recognition with grace, but redirected attention to the collective achievements of their class. "Success isn't measured by company size or revenue," he noted in brief remarks. "It's found in building something meaningful, whether that's a business, a family, a community contribution, or simply becoming who you were meant to be." The words resonated deeply with Valencia, who understood their personal significance. The Trent addressing their classmates had integrated his past experiences, including his pain, into wisdom that defined his present without controlling it. Later in the evening, as attendees mingled and reminisced, the hotel manager approached Trent with urgent concern. "Mr. Calloway, there's a security situation at the entrance. Your bodyguards are causing quite a stir." Trent appeared confused. "I don't have bodyguards." The situation clarified when they reached the lobby. A black SUV had pulled up to the hotel entrance, and two professionally dressed security personnel stood scanning the area with the unmistakable alertness of professional protection specialists. Before Trent could inquire, the rear door opened, and an elegant woman emerged, Leona Bradshaw, accompanied by Calloway's executive team. "Sorry for the dramatic entrance," Leona apologized as she approached. "But we couldn't wait until morning to deliver the news." "The contract?" Trent asked, immediately focused. "Not just that," Leona replied, her usual professional demeanor giving way to genuine excitement. "The Secretary of Defense personally called. They're not just adopting our gear, they're implementing our entire training protocol for special operations units. It's beyond what we proposed." The significance of this development was momentous. Calloway's methodologies would now influence military operations at the highest levels, a validation of Trent's vision that exceeded even his ambitious goals. As Trent absorbed this news, former classmates gathered in the lobby, witnessing the scene with dawning realization. The security personnel, the executive team's deference to Trent, the evident importance of the moment, all confirmed what many had heard but few had truly comprehended about Trent Calloway's rise. Valencia, standing nearby, felt a complex mixture of emotions: pride in Trent's achievement, appreciation for the leader he had become, and a bittersweet acknowledgement of her own past blindness to his potential. When Trent turned to find her watching, he crossed the lobby to share the moment. "Everything we've built, it's going to make a real difference now," he told her quietly. "For the operators in the field, the ones who matter most." "You always understood what really mattered," Valencia replied. "I'm sorry I didn't see that sooner." Around them, their former classmates watched with undisguised fascination as the woman who had once declared Trent not successful enough stood before him now, his company's triumph unfolding in real time. Some expected, perhaps even hoped for, a moment of public humiliation or rejection. It would have completed the revenge narrative they had constructed around Trent's rise. Instead, they witnessed something more meaningful: the quiet closure of a chapter between two people who had moved beyond their shared pain to mutual respect. "Would you like to join us?" Trent asked, gesturing toward his team. "We're celebrating at the office. Many of these developments built on marketing strategies you helped create." Valencia shook her head gently. "This is your moment, not mine. I have my own path now." Trent nodded, understanding. Different paths, but maybe parallel ones now instead of divergent. As Trent departed with his team, the remaining reunion attendees buzzed with conversation about what they had witnessed. For most, it was simply dramatic entertainment, the perfect conclusion to their nostalgic evening. For Valencia, watching the SUVs pull away, it represented something profound: the final resolution of their complicated history. Trent had achieved success beyond anyone's imagination, but his greatest triumph wasn't financial or professional. It was becoming a man defined by purpose rather than resentment, by vision rather than vindication. The following morning, as attendees departed Oak Ridge to return to their scattered lives, local media reported two significant developments: Callaway Performance Systems' landmark defense contract and Garrison Pike's additional sentencing for parole violations and new charges. The contrast between these stories provided perfect symmetry. The man who had built his success on integrity reaching new heights, while the man who had relied on shortcuts and appearances faced the consequences of those choices once again. Trent returned to his farmhouse after the celebration with his team, reflecting on the completion of a journey that had begun with a devastating betrayal. The revenge he had once craved had materialized in a form he could never have anticipated, not through Valencia's downfall or Pike's imprisonment, but through his own transformation into someone who had transcended their impact on his life. The military had taught him that true victory wasn't about destroying enemies, but about achieving objectives that mattered. His objective had evolved from personal vindication to creating something of lasting value, a company that protected those who protected others. As for Valencia, the reunion marked her own form of closure. The ambitious young woman who had valued status over substance had grown into someone who recognized authentic achievement. Her professional success, though more modest than Trent's, was built on genuine skills rather than connections or appearances. In the weeks following the reunion, as Callaway Performance Systems began implementing the defense contract, Trent received an unexpected message from Valencia. Not a personal outreach, but a formal introduction to a veteran support organization seeking corporate partnerships for rehabilitation programs. The gesture communicated everything necessary about their new relationship: professional, purposeful, focused on creating value rather than revisiting the past. Trent approved the partnership immediately, recognizing its alignment with Callaway's core values. Their paths would continue to intersect in Oak Ridge's business community, their shared history informing but no longer defining their interactions. Both had learned the same fundamental lesson through different experiences. True success wasn't measured by external validation, but by internal integrity. The transformation of a heartbroken soldier into an industry leader hadn't occurred because of revenge, but because of resilience. The company he built stood as testament not to Valencia's poor judgment, but to his own discovered purpose. And in that discovery lay the most complete form of vindication, becoming someone whose success was so authentic and meaningful that comparison to the past became irrelevant. Trent Callaway had not just survived betrayal. He had alchemized it into something precious and enduring. The revenge fantasy of rejecting Valencia at a high school reunion had been replaced by something far more significant: the creation of a life so purposeful that rejection or acceptance from others, even her, no longer defined his worth. That was the true victory, the genuine triumph, the most complete circle of all. And there you